No.
See, here's the part. I don't know. So he advises her to play a deck. You tell me. And it's not the deck he's playing. It just so happens that his deck has a good matchup against hers.
Well, the red-green aggro deck definitely has some game, but a lot of this is also playing to your strengths or archetypes you're more comfortable with or what have you. But Chris is so far, of course, off to a great start here 4-0. Chris, you will, if you've followed our open coverage, if you've read his articles, you know that the beard he is growing out until he wins a tournament. And it has been a little while now, and you see the full majesty of Chris VanMeter's beard.
Yeah. In all seriousness, though, both decks are pretty good decks. We're going to see the game start out. Chris VanMeter with a Thoughtseize. He does see 4 lands. It's double green, a red, a Mutavault, the Domri Rod, Boon Satyr, and Gore-Clan Rampager.
And the big thing, in my opinion, for red-green aggro to have in this matchup is a mana accelerant. It's important for it to jump ahead of mono black's removal and threat base. And so the hands where it has an Elvish Mystic, has a Sylvan Caryatid, are very different from the hands that don't.
Yeah, well, this is one of the matchups where Thoughtseize is at its best. Remember, the green-red aggro deck, like most of these green-red monstrous decks, usually gets about 4 or 5 large threats a game. And the goal of the opposing deck is, can you deal with all 4 or 5 of them? And Thoughtseize always gets to hit one of them. That's why it's very strong, especially on turn 1, because he gets to choose which one he can't otherwise deal with.
So Chris going to quickly put Chris to the test here. Playing a turn 2 pack rat, we'll see if he has a 3rd land.
Yep, she has a turn 2 pack rat. For the turn, Charissa drew a Xanago, so she has another threat in hand, but she's going to have to face down this pack rat, as you said, and he does have the 3rd land.
So Chris in a position to potentially run away with the game very quickly, as the regular green aggro deck doesn't have a lot of great answers to pack rat game 1. It can overload Mizium Mortars, but that's a little late to the party. And otherwise, he's to fly over or overpower, neither of which are easy to do.
Now, in this matchup, I want to ask, if you're Chris, if you actually go for the pack rat plan here, the rest of his hand is so strong against green-red. We see Desecration Demon and Double Devour Flesh for Chris. Both those cards are cards that are just excellent against green-red. Demon is probably your best creature, and 1-for-1 removal is so strong, especially when he's seen her hand. And it looks like he's not pack ratting this turn.
Well, I think discarding the Gray Merchant is basically a freebie. And then from there,
right,
it depends what his draw steps are.
Okay, yeah, he's going to make the pack rat. He didn't want to trade it with Mutavault. But we'll see if he makes, 4 powers already pretty relevant. He's drawn another removal spell in Hero's Downfall. He does not have the 4th land, and that might make the decision for him.
Yep.
So he'll swing with the 2 rats.
So representing a Boon Satyr that was revealed to the Thoughtseize.
Yep, so he knows about the Boon Satyr. Looks like he's willing to trade either the Hero's Downfall with the Boon Satyr or a pack rat with the Boon Satyr. Certainly, he'd be fine trading a rat with the Mutavault, I think.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a trade, he's just eating one. So we do see Boon Satyr for Charissa. So VanMeter gets the choice. He can trade a rat for it, or trade the Devour Flesh for it, or trade the Downfall for it.
I assume we're going to see a removal spell here, as it trades for a card regardless, and it's additional damage.
Right, so... Yeah. It's this... Yeah, it's really the same. I suppose casting Devour Flesh versus discarding Devour Flesh is exactly the same thing. Both of them put Charissa down to 18 and leave Chris with 2 pack rats.
Right.
So yeah, so actually the same play. And he will put her to 18. So it's 18 both ways.
And that Hero's Downfall is pretty important for Chris as well, so it gives him insurance against a large threat like Pelucranos or Stormbreath Dragon, which could race or threaten to remove some pack rats.
All right. So we have a 4th land from Charissa. She now has her red mana online. She has option between Xanagos, looks like Xanagos or Gore-Clan this turn.
But neither of these plays provide a lot of traction in fighting through a pack rat here.
Right, she's going to go with Gore-Clan. Chris is flush with answers for it, though. He does have, as we know, both the Downfall and the Devour Flesh. We probably will see Devour Flesh because of that Mutavault that's lingering. Chris does hit the land for the turn, though, so he gets to decide between removal spell or casting Desecration Demon.
There's also an argument here for just not even bothering and building up pack rats, as that allows it to get outside of Mizium Mortar's range.
He's going to go ahead and devour the Gore-Clan. And so it's a trade of 4 life. Gain 4, take 4. Chris is still 18-18.
Yeah, I'm actually not a huge fan of that play, as it potentially opens Chris up to running red sources into Mizium mortars outpacing his pack rats,
Right.
I think I would have been happy to just sit on my hands and just make rats. Because once they get to 5/5s, then the red-green deck doesn't really have a lot of ways to get out.
Well, this is why I think there's something to be said for just either you pack rat, like you're saying, or I think you play Desecration Demon. That's like a separate, right? That's a separate line you can take to just say, all right, I'll just hit you with this 6/6. Charissa does play Pelucranos, and we see another removal spell. This is a Hero's Downfall from VanMeter. Now he's able to start making inroads into the life total. It's now down to 14. We see his 2 remaining cards as a Demon and an Underworld Connections.
There are 2 copies of Mizium mortars in Charissa's main deck.
Yeah.
But does not appear that there are any in hand.
Right, so that's a pretty good, that's a good situation for Charissa. The other thing is main deck, she has almost no answers, I believe, to a Desecration Demon, other than fogging it and racing it.
Yeah. Xenagos can kind of be an answer in some spots.
Right.
You can make a Storm Breath Dragon that's larger. There's some kind of sideways backdoor answers, but nothing that just kills a demon.
Right. So Xenagos will come into play. It will make a 2/2 Satyr, and that should be all she make. She's going to go ahead and make the Elvish Mystic also. You have the option of holding it. And without a good attacking threat, this will give VanMeter some leeway to press his advantage. And his start turn is Pack Rat. So VanMeter with 2 Pack Rats in play, 4 Swamps. He's facing down a Elvish Mystic, a Satyr token, a Xenagos, and a Mutavault, which cannot be activated. Those are the last threats that Charissa has right now. So if he can deal with these, he'll just be playing against the top of her deck. He has a couple routes he can do. He can continue to Pack Rat, he can make a Demon, or he can start drawing with Underworld Connections, currently contemplating which route he wants to take.
Yeah, it's just hard to take a turn off of pack ratting once you've started.
Right, so the swing of 2 Pack Rats, looks like they're both going at Xenagos, and Charissa is double chump blocking. That one locks in Chris to making another Pack Rat. And he's gonna discard, it looks like Desecration Demon. He's looking at Connections and Demon. He's Connections, Demon, Pack Rat. One of them goes away to make a Pack Rat here.
Yeah, right now Chris has to mull over, how do I want to start the game over in the event that Mizium Mortars happens?
Right, he's gonna discard Demon, making a Pack Rat, and that will eat both the creatures. I mean, no, Charissa doesn't even have, she doesn't have triple red yet, actually.
Well, Xenagos can potentially enable that.
Right, she could activate Mutavault. Okay, then make a red. Okay, so she does have the triple red. She has actually the mountain in hand. So she's set up for mortars. Did not look like she drew it this turn. Looks like she has about 1 more turn to draw mortars. It's going to be Scavenging Ooze. And that's actually not too bad here. The graveyards are pretty flush with creatures.
Yeah. VanMeter with a Desecration Demon and a Gray Merchant in his. Charissa with some Boon Satyrs and Elvish Mystic fodder that got gunned down earlier, so.
Yeah, and she plays her last card out. That's a mountain. She has triple green in play, so the Ooze will actually be able to become a 5/5 and could give at least 1 turn's relief from Pack Rats. Well, would, if not for the fact that Chris had a 5th land and another Pack Rat here. So that's the 4th, and he can make a 5th.
And this is the critical junction now where I don't think Chris wants to trade a rat this turn because, again, the last thing that he needs to be the only thing at this point he really needs to be concerned about, in my opinion, is Mizium Mortars. So even allowing Charissa to trade that Ooze for one of the rats puts Chris in a position where, you know, if Charissa does draw Mizium Mortars, Chris could lose everything.
All right, so it's a swing of 9. So yeah, you're saying she still should be making this trade.
Yeah, I mean, it plays to her 1 out.
Yeah.
And for the same reason, I actually question this attack from Chris, because losing one of your rats here is very risky.
Yeah, you'd rather just wait 1 turn and then have
wait 1 turn and then the coast is clear.
Exactly. So if she blocks and trades with an Ooze, she has a 1-turn shot at top decking Mizium Mortars. The difficult thing is, even in that situation, Chris's final card is Underworld Connections. So
well, Chris has to discard his last card in the sequence if he actually wants to trade with the Ooze.
Okay.
So he'll be on empty.
So Mutavault and Satyr token will take 1 rat. Scavenging Ooze will block another one. I really like this play by Charissa. because this actually means that she gets 2 turns of possibly drawing mortars to answer the pack rats.
Well, if Chris turns them into 5/5s, then yeah, the ooze trades with 1,
And then they become smaller.
and then they shrink. Yeah, and then the 4 power kills the other rat. So
she's down to 3 rats and no cards, so she'll actually get 2 turns to draw mortars. Granted, she will go to 2 on the next attack. You know, things aren't great.
yeah, Chris is doing a very good job of playing to her routes right now.
Yeah, I really like how she's playing this. So Scavenging Ooze will start by eating 2 creatures. This is Pelucranos and Elvish Mystic. She's gonna go for the 3rd one, taking care of Gore Clan. So brings her up to 17, and Chris is locked into making the pack rat. So trades all over, and I believe that attack was at. We'll see, was it at her or Xenagos?
I believe it went to Charissa. So the die has been cast here. So we are about to see if Chris was able to find a Visium Mortars.
And he was Chrissa was not that turn. Yeah, and especially on that attack, Chris went to the dome instead of going at the Xenagos.
Well, I think he might have to threaten lethal to compel Charissa to do anything at all. And the Xenagos is getting outpaced by the rats anyway, so. All right,
so makes a rat. That'll be 2 chump blockers, and she takes 4, and it's mortars or bust now.
Right. Well, Charissa has played this game very well to navigate it to this spot.
And is it there? No, it's Stormbreath Dragon.
Dragon.
I saw a red card.
Yeah.
You know, for a second, I was like, oh, that'd be so much justice. Because if she had top decked it, she would get the Xenagos too. That's the best part. You know, she'd actually be ahead.
So Chris VanMeter with Pack Rat. It was definitely not a smooth Pack Rat game. There was some jockeying for position there and some bobbing and weaving, but able to take down the first game. Going to move over to the sideboard here. First on Charissa's side. 4 copies of Mistcutter Hydra, 2 Destructive Revelries, a Rorthar, 2 Mizium Mortars, 2 Shocks, 2 Wasteland Vipers, a Chandra Pyromaster, and a Garrett Caller Beast. It wouldn't surprise me if she just wanted to become more Planeswalker-oriented in the matchup to try to outlast the Mono Black Devotion removal. We see this, Mono Blue converts to a similar plan as well, where they're bringing in Jace's Embidance to outgrind. So more Planeswalkers and additional removal, I think, to answer Pack Rat is probably where Chris is going to want to go here.
Yeah, each deck tries to become more like they already are. You know, Chris needs her threats to hit even harder. Cards like Sylvan Caryatid become pretty bad in this matchup. She just wants more walkers, more things that can run away with the game. Similarly, Chris wants more removal. You know, he has 3 Lifebane Zombies, 2 Doomblades, and you'd have to think that all of those are going to come in the matchup.
Yep.
He can even bring in Duress in this matchup. There are enough Planeswalkers in Charissa's deck that Duress is not a terrible idea. The question is how much he actually wants to board out. I think one of the cards he does not particularly like in the matchup is he has some Cures, Fricka's Cures in the main deck, which are not too live. Grey Merchant of Asphodel is also only okay in this matchup.
The red-green deck is capable of producing a lot of power. It's not a deck that's dealing 2 points of damage here and 2 points of damage there.
Yeah.
It's about generating an overwhelming board, and so Grey Merchant might be a little out of place.
Yeah, when it wins because its Stormbreath became a 7/7, or its Garruk drew 4 cards, or something that's, problems that one Grey Merchant really won't solve.
Mm-hmm. So if you're just joining us, Patrick Sullivan, Matthias Hunt, Star City Games open here in Baltimore. We're in round number 5. Chris VanMeter and Chris Williams sitting here at 4-0. Chris up a game, one of our top players in our Season 1 standings, another top player for currently the 2014 standings as well, where 8 invites to our Players' Championship the year get given out. And so, again, Chris trying to win a tournament. That enormous beard that you see has been grown since.
Just keeps getting larger.
He gets to shave when the tournament ends, or when he wins a tournament, rather.
All right, so. Yeah, going into game 2, Charissa will be on the play. And like I said, I really was impressed with how she played that last game. I do think this matchup is difficult for the green-red aggro deck, though.
Yeah.
By and large, the issue is that she's playing threats and he's playing removal, and the removal all costs less than the threats. So he's usually a turn ahead.
Right. However, he is pretty threat light, so Chris will get a lot of hands that don't involve doing anything proactive. And in those games, every planeswalker, every hit he takes from a creature that he can't contain for one turn, those all add up. So he needs to have removal backed by threats. It can't just be nothing but terminates.
Or he needs to find a window which he can sneak an Underworld Connections in or something like that.
Yes, Underworld Connections backed up by a lot of removal spells is another game plan.
Right, that's something which he can do.
You know, in the same way that Grey Merchant doesn't really matter too much in the matchup potentially because it's all about overpowering, Underworld Connections potentially gets better for Chris after board. He can afford to take the points of damage because he's just worried about
answering everything. He's not
containing the board, yeah.
Right.
Additional random incremental points of damage do not matter very much.
I think the scariest card for him is Garruk, Caller of Beasts, because he basically has to thought seize the card because, you know, when it comes down, it draws 3, so it's very hard to outgrind the card. That's one of the things. She has access to just 1, but she does have 1 in the sideboard, and that figures to be a very strong card.
I know when we saw this deck in Indianapolis in the hands of Chris VanMeter and Brian Bronwyn, they actually had 1 Garruk in the main, which is, I guess, since then been moved to the sideboard.
All right, so we are about to be underway with Game 2 here. Remember, both these players are 4-0 right now. We have a 10-round tournament. It will take 8 or probably 9 wins to reach the top 8. So both players doing well so far, but still have a ways to go.
Charissa with a beautiful hand here of Accelerants, Xenagos, and some removal spells.
Yep, she goes Forest into Elvish Mystic. It's a good hand. It's a hand that's weak to Thoughtseize type effect, but can be pretty strong otherwise. And that's one of the worries. It's a turn 1 duress from VanMeter. We see Stormbreath Dragon, Mizium Mortars, Xenagos, and 2 more lands. It's possible that VanMeter really can just duress and Thoughtseize this hand to the point where it's no longer threatening.
Yeah. Just trade 1 for 1 and let something like Desecration Demon wrap up the rest.
Absolutely. So we have the Xenagos was taken there by VanMeter. Chris's draw for the turn is another Forest. And she will play Temple Abandoned. That's looking for another threat. And the top card is not it. She will ship it to the bottom and swing 1.
We'll see what kind of follow-up Chris has here, if he has access to potentially a turn 2 pack rat. He probably wants to get away from that game plan a little bit now, knowing that Charissa has Mizium Mortars in hand.
Yeah, he is certainly on the all threats plan. If you look at his hand here, he has Doomblade, Devour Flesh, Ultimate Price even being spent on Elvish Mystic there.
He's trying to just contain development here.
Yeah, well, by using Ultimate Price on the Elvish Mystic, it does mean that this Devour Flesh is now free to kill whatever it needs to. And we see a land from Charissa and no play. 3rd land from VanMeter, and now he has a threat. It's Lifebane Zombie. Did it find something to hit? No, it did not. Charissa has just drawn more lands.
But this is a fine hand for Chris to be staring down right now. There's a Stormbreath Dragon that's easy to answer with a litany of removal in his hand. A Mizium Mortars that he can kind of overpower. He doesn't really care that much about his Lifebane Zombie getting killed, and so...
Yeah, so right now it's fine. She's going to Mortars the Lifebane Zombie, but Charissa now has a new game plan. Her top deck for that turn was Garruk, Caller of Beasts. If she can survive up to turn 6 without that card getting duressed or Thoughtseized, that certainly is something that can pull her back into the game.
And you see Chris disagreed a little bit with removing Grey Merchant, as he has quite a few Grey Merchants in hand.
Yeah, so he's on a... Be interested to see what he did remove. We see a 5th land from Charissa. It looks like it's... I mean, her hand is pretty straightforward. She has a turn 5 Stormbreath and a turn 6 Garruk. She's not going to play the Stormbreath, though.
Yeah, unwilling to cast that into what appears to be a pretty obvious removal spell.
Right. Temple of Deceit finds Underworld Connections. Chris will certainly leave that one on top. What will be tough for Chris is, while he has removal in his hand, I do not believe he has a Hero's Downfall. So this Garruk could really draw a lot of cards. Yeah. And it's going to go to work. See Garruk, Caller of Beasts made by Charissa.
And Charissa's really getting paid off for her patience last turn as well. A lot of people would just cast the Stormbreath Dragon because it's the only thing to do. Willing to wait to not let Chris curve out with his removal, and now Garruk's online, and
it's going to draw 3. So Stormbreath, Pelucranos, and Caryatid. Shipping a Domri and land to the bottom. Guruk, so strong if you see that. It comes into play with 4 counters, moves up to 5, so it's not going to be answerable by Chris right away. And every turn Charissa keeps that Guruk in play, it'll probably draw her 2 to 3 cards a turn.
Yeah, and talk about a card that's able to overpower a 1-for-1 removal game plan.
Absolutely. This is a 1-of she brought in out of the sideboard. And like I said, probably her best card in the matchup.
Definitely when we get to spots like this. I mean, Chris's hand is low impact Gray Merchants. He can draw cards. He can sit on removal, but he needs to do something proactive to answer this Garrick.
Yeah, so his options at pro action here are he can play a Gray Merchant, or he can try to Underworld Connections and find a Hero's Downfall. And those are really, that's it. And my guess is he'll go on the Connections plan, I think, but neither of them are particularly appealing game plans.
He also might need to just clog the board up and try to win with Gray Merchant drainouts. And Underworld Connections is good in that game plan as well.
Yeah, so he has 3, I believe 2 or 3 Gray Merchants in hand. So that's a drain of, 4 and then 6. That's 10. It only would take a 3rd Gray Merchant to have it be 18. And his draw for the turn his draw off the Connections was Swamp. He'll pass back. But Charissa, Mutavault drawn, and now she has a fresh hand full of threats. She has double Storm Breath. She has Sylvan Caryatid.
And critically under very little pressure, too. This allows her to just keep spinning Garrick.
Yep. This Garrick finds Caryatid, Rampager, Rampager. Those last...
Oof. Oof.
All right. All right. Just how many removal spells do you have, Chris VanMeter? We will find out. And see, the wise thing here is to play just very heads up play. She plays out the Caryatid first so that when she makes the Storm Breath, it requires him now to have a Ultimate Price or a Doomblade and not a Devour Flesh.
Yeah. Also, more mana is really good for Charissa right now, as all she's trying to do is deploy additional threats. It also gives her an 0-3 blocker to check the Mutavault in case Chris wants to go down that road. So a lot of little things going on that turn.
Yeah, I really like that. So she made Chris use his best removal spell as opposed to was probably his worst one right now. Chris drawing 2 cards per turn. It was a Thoughtseize and a Swamp. He does have 2 Gray Merchants in hand, but the 3rd card, he does not have a 3rd one, so he doesn't have a path to victory yet.
And we're getting to the stage here where Chris is going to start actually deploying some really powerful threats each turn. These last couple turns have just been basically set up for Garrick, but now we're reaching a point where Chris is going to be under substantial pressure starting very soon.
Thoughtseize will take down Storm Breath Dragon, and Gray Merchant drains for 4. Remember, Chris has a 2nd merchant in hand. He only needs to find a 3rd merchant to have a lethal. And so he took the haste creature basically just as a concession to saying that he just wants to survive for a couple turns. He has a proactive game plan, actually. And another plus finds Boon Satyr and another Storm Breath. The thing about Guruk, in this matchup, I'm not positive that you ever emblem the Guruk. It's possible you just plus Guruk forever.
The whole time, yeah.
Yeah. The emblem's neat, but it does give Chris the ability to answer all your cards. So now, with a embarrassment of riches, we have Storm Breath, Gorklan, Pelukranos, Ooze, Boon Satyr. So she will start with Storm Breath Dragon.
And the Ooze is another good pickup for Charissa here, as if Chris is on some sort of burnout with Gray Merchant plan.
Exactly, I was thinking the same thing.
Ooze can lend a hand there, certainly.
All right, well now she is on the attack. So finally Chris is able to get some of her own damage across. That's gonna be Storm Breath Dragon in for 4, and heads up, her next play is not a good Conjuring Preacher, but it is the Scavenging Ooze we were talking about. Continuing to be just impressed with how she's navigating this matchup.
Yes, she's clearly very conscious of the tricks Chris could potentially have and how he's trying to sculpt the game, both games thus far.
Right, it'd be appealing to make a 4-4 over a 2-2, but I like that she's just, no, this life gain matters.
Yeah.
And Chris, drawing for the turn, draws a Temple. He's going to scry to the bottom. This is all before he activates his Underworld Connections. Clearly searching for, I still think it's still probably a Hero's Downfall that he's searching for.
The problem is that I think there might have been too much damage.
The damage is done.
Yeah, he has picked up a Hero's Downfall here, but it's possible that maybe he still kills Garrick, but at this point, Chris might have to play more of a tempo game than a card advantage game because the ship sailed on him being able to trade card for card.
Saying he might have to downfall the Storm Breath Dragon.
Yeah, we might be that far
Absolutely.
gone on the card advantage axis.
Yeah, he does not have too many turns. He also has to leave up mana. He knows that there's double Gore Clan in Charissa's hand.
Yeah.
And he's going to go ahead and do that. So Charissa, with 2 points of life gain, goes up to 16 and now has a 4/4 Scavenging Ooze. Great play. So we still may see an emblem of Garrick. If she makes an emblem, I suppose she can go and immediately find more Storm Breaths.
Sure.
Yeah, now he's got to read it. So this is something we do not see very often. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a creature spell, you may search the library for another creature and put it on the battlefield, which I have to think every creature comes with Storm Breath Dragon attached to it now.
Yeah,
it's
Storm Breath Dragon is not a bad one to go get.
Sure. I mean, there are other good options too. You know, that's not the only one, but it's probably the scariest one.
Yeah.
Or it could come with Rurik Thar attached to it too.
Sure.
That's a good one too if your opponent's playing some kill spells.
Chris sliding over his cell phone, it appears, to represent a Garrick emblem.
All right.
Yeah, if Rurik Thar is still in the deck, that's probably where you lead, right?
You start with the Rurik Thar.
That's where we'll start things.
The best part is that Chris, to avoid taking 6 there, he has to downfall or something in response to the, once she shows him that it's Rurik Thar, it's too late.
Right. This all assumes that the Rurik Thar is actually in the deck here.
I think I would board it in, right? If you're on the all threats plan. She's swinging before casting cards here, so it's no Storm Breaths yet. I mean, what this to me says is she's setting up for a kill next turn. She plays a bunch of creatures, finds things, then she can next turn make Storm Breaths, and that'll be the biggest swing possible. She even has some tricks in that she has 2 Boon Satyrs, so she can flash blockers. She can flash Rurik Thars into play, and do a bunch of really
There's a lot of angles.
A lot of angles.
A lot of angles right now.
She can make a lot of power worth of creatures.
Yeah. Chris contemplating, but he, there are no really good paths for Chris at this point. In a small way, that Scavenging Ooze might have been the thing that shut the door.
I completely agree. Actually, that was the card which once I saw it, I was like, now I don't think, because before we had a out of 1 more Gray Merchant, and that out's gone now. And it shows how much that 1 Garrick can really, how much work it can do. And she's going to go ahead and start by eating the Scavenging Ooze up to a 5/5.
Oh yeah, Garrick's put in no shortage of work in this game.
Yeah.
Again, if we're talking about Mono Black being a deck that is all about trading 1 for 1, Garrick has a way of blowing up that plan.
She might try to kill him this turn. She's going to Blood Rush a Gore Clan Rampager. So it looks like there were no blocks. So that is right now 5. It's 13 damage being put through. And she's going to make it be lethal. She's going to eat the Gore Clan. Let's see. This should draw a kill spell from VanMeter.
I would assume so. I mean,
yeah, he's got to not die. This is forcing him to use a removal spell on the Ooze as opposed to using it on the Storm Breath. All right, removal spell will be used there, so only 4 taken by VanMeter. That means he'll be at 10. Chris is going to Devour Flesh here. That will probably just hit a Mutavault or a Boon Satyr.
I imagine, yeah, this may.
Yep, hit Mutavault.
Yep.
Chris goes up to 20.
I don't know if Chris is trying to run a trap here potentially with that Boon Satyr, but sacrificing the Mutavault is kind of a freebie at this stage.
Yeah. And we'll see Sylvan Caryatid post-combat. And let's see if it's Rurik Thar, Storm Breath, maybe Pelucranos, tons of options. And it's Rurik Thar.
That's enough for Chris.
You could tell by how she was going through her deck, that she was just looking for the Rurik Thar. Yeah.
So, Charissa ties it up here. Game 2 on the back of Garrick Caller Beast, so we'll be moving to a 3rd game momentarily. Yeah. Do you think any sideboarding here changes on the play versus on the draw?
Interesting, on the play versus the draw. Well, we already have seen that Chris likes the duresses in the matchup. And to be honest, I don't think the tempo of play versus draw matters too much in this matchup.
It feels a lot like the text on the cards are the thing that matters, less about the tempo of the game.
Actually, because of that, I'm surprised that, like, so when I've played this matchup a lot from the green-red side. Green-red was the first deck I played in the format. I know that some players, myself included, don't play the Caryatids post board because of exactly what you said. It's just the text on the cards that matters. Elvish Mystic doesn't even have much text. That card's probably too good not to play, just because turn 2 Domries are that good. But as far as pre-board, post-board, no, I don't think too many changes happen. I can't see what I would want.
So even with Devour Flesh and Desecration Demon in the mono black deck, you're not that interested in keeping the mana creatures in because they give you explosive openings, and then there's other stuff to do with them later, or the matchup's just too one-for-one oriented?
Yeah, look at what Chris's plan was post-board. You know, he had, what was his opener? Was Duress, Devour Flesh, Doomblade, some other kill spell, I think. I think there was another one there.
Sure.
Like, remember, you saw him Duress the Domri, the Xenagos right away that game, and you're just thinking, oh, how is she going to get this? You know, he's just going to Doomblade the Storm Breath. And, tempo didn't really matter. What mattered was that she drew the Garruk after he Duressed her, really. That was the key part there. So, no, I don't think tempo matters too much. I don't.
And the lack of pressure, it does feel like the mono black deck does have to get something going. I think even if Chris has something like Desecration Demon in that game, he might be able to just damage race effectively enough to overpower Garruk. Even if he's never actually able to kill Garruk, you know what I mean?
Desecration Demon is, I think, the card, you really hit it on that. That's the card that the green-red deck is scared of. It's because it can race. And it also can block almost everything green-red does. It's an answer to Storm Breath, it's an answer to Pelucranos. You know, that is how, I think that's Mono Black's preferred way to win. I know that when I first played this deck, I was worried enough about Desecration Demon that I was playing Arbor Colossus in the sideboard just to blow it up. Which, at the time, Mono Black wasn't a popular deck. I don't think that plan would work now. They just kill your Arbor Colossus before you could Monstrous it. But Desecration Demon's a huge weakness for the green-red deck.
Yeah, it's a weakness for a lot of decks, too. Even some decks you wouldn't even think of, like Mono Blue Devotion. We've seen fast Desecration Demons just run it out of the gym.
The card's huge.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's a 6/6 flyer for 4. Let's think about other 6/6 flyers for 4. What kind of drawbacks do they have to give them? Like we're talking about, we're in Abyssal Persecutor territory.
Right.
You can't win drawback.
Yeah. Sacrifice 2 mountains,
right.
You get a 5/5. It's times are different.
I mean that's Wrathy Dragon, right?
Right.
Yeah. I suppose you jump right to the red one, though.
Yeah, I jumped to the one that I've played.
Was he good?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there were random spots where it was okay-ish, but no. Well, I do believe it has a Pro Tour win under its belt.
All right. 2 mountains is a lot, isn't it?
It is a lot. It is quite a bit.
I mean, Fire Blast is a fine card, though, right? Even though that has 2 mountains, but...
Well, sacrificing 2 mountains isn't much of a cost on a card that is killing your opponent that turn.
Right, you're right. You cast it when they're at 4. And you're like, well, I'm sacking 2 mountains.
Armageddon myself as additional cost. You win the game. The Armageddon yourself as a cost isn't much of a cost in that spot.
All right, both players have now drawn opening hands. We'll see where they are at. It looks like we are going to see a pair of keeps. VanMeter has kept a hand.
Nope.
Oh, just kidding. VanMeter drew 6 more cards.
Or he's very aggressively running some shady action here on camera.
He had a turn 1 Thoughtseize. I think his hand was a lot of lands and thought. I know he had land and Thoughtseize, but Carissa's going to go ahead and keep on 7, and I actually really like her keep. So this is kind of, I don't like being fast in the matchup, but it looks like I believe she's kept, check me if I'm wrong here, is a 2-lander where both lands are temples, and then about 5 business cards.
Nice.
And
really solid opening.
Really solid because, I remember this was our plan against, looking to play this deck against Esper decks too, is like, they look at your hand and you just kind of say, well, can you answer all of them? That's your challenge because if any one of these gets through, now it's bad news.
And especially the Planeswalkers, right? Because those are threats that beget more threats.
Right, Domri is the first one you land, and boy, they better take that one or they'll have to answer more.
And Domri also fighting things, cuts off basically all non-Desecration Demon creatures as well.
Yeah, that's what Green Red does so well, is that of all the decks in the format, it definitely has the best access to Planeswalkers. You have Domri Rad, Chandra Pyromaster, Xenagos, and Garruk Caller Beast, all card advantage generating Planeswalkers. All right, and we are underway. It's a swamp led off with by Chris. And a stomping ground by Charissa. She has now it looks to be a pair of Domri Rads, but Chris might be on a different plan this game. He has a turn 2 pack rat.
And Chris is under a lot of pressure to find a removal spell pronto.
Well, she does have a turn 2 ooze, so actually her Domri should be good enough to start killing pack rats if she needs to.
Well, it seems that path seems fraught with peril unless Chris
right. You try for it.
Chris needs to start discarding creatures basically for that setup to do very much.
Well, yeah, I suppose the problem is if Charissa tells Scavenging Ooze to fight pack rat, then he'll downfall the ooze.
Yeah, or just make a rat in response and keep one.
Right. Yeah, either of them is a problem. So he's going to swing for 1.
Offering up a trade here.
I think you take it, right?
I like a block. Anything to outpace,
Yeah.
You can overpower the pack rat given enough time. It's the initial pacing.
Yep.
Charissa might just get run out of the gates by this pack rat. So any opportunity you have to trade gives you another opportunity to draw a removal spell and just get out from under it. And also just gives you more time to find cards like Pelukrinos and Stormbreath Dragon.
Charissa's up 2 cards right now. She can afford to be the 1-for-1 deck, right?
Yeah, and Chris having a Mutavault in play also changes the texture of the math quite a bit. Makes Chris's clock potentially much faster than it would otherwise be.
Yeah, so then next turn she could just play Boon Satyr or Domri Plus. Yep. Either's fine. And she comes to the same conclusion. She's going to go ahead and block with Ooze. Swamp discarded. Chris gets a pack rat token, but now is down to being a 1-1. One thing Charissa that could get her is that she is a little low on land right now. All right, so third land is a forest, and she's going to cast Domri and plus it up. Domri's strong here, but it doesn't play to the plan you were talking about. The outpay, this could get her behind on the pack rats.
Well, if
she doesn't have another option, mind you.
Right. And it possibly sets her up for something like Pelukrinos
fight.
Yeah.
Right. So then that recoups the pack rat she didn't kill this turn.
Right. And Chris has some incentive to just be main facing all this stuff to get the Domri as low as possible, as fast as possible. So he may not be able to leave up mana to say Hero's Downfall in response to a fight because he wants to add as much power to the board as possible to try to kill this Domri as fast as he can.
Now, he can just activate Mutavault and kill Domri here.
Yes.
But
that's another turn.
That's another turn. That's another turn he doesn't make pack rats. I suppose he also could attack Domri, just activate Mutavault, and then hold up the 3 as well. And he's going to go ahead and go at Charissa and play Desecration Demon. He's on a completely new plan.
Yeah, and I think Chris is taking the right path here. There's so much risk involved in just leaning on pack rat this game for a variety of reasons. There's Mizzium Mortars. There's the potential for Charissa to just overpower it. But now that Chris has taken a couple turns off of her board presence trying to fight through pack rat, Desecration Demon might just be too big, too fast.
Demon is so good against Chris. If you look at it, she actually does not have a removal spell for it. Her best removal is Pelukrinos. Next turn, Monstrous X equals 2, make it fight, hope Chris has no kill spells.
Yeah.
That's not a line you don't really want to take.
It's asking a lot.
All right, well, she does make the play to clear the board of rats. She plays Pelukrinos on 4. Domri has Pelukrinos fight the remaining pack rat, and there are no more rats. We are back to Chris, now with Desecration Demon and Mutavault in tow. And his draw was Gray Merchant of Asphodel. That will actually shave a turn off of the clock. When he gets to Charissa to 1, he can cast, and lethal with it. He's going to go ahead and main phase Hero's Downfall to Pelukrinos and kill Domri.
And this is a great position for Chris to be in. Empty board, facing down an empty board with Desecration Demon in play.
Yeah, it's a really difficult spot for the aggro deck to come back from, actually.
And Charissa has access to another Domri, which can fog. She has a Mutavault, which can fog, but it's hard to imagine getting much traction in the game the way it's currently going.
Yeah, her answer to Desecration Demon, the other answer she has is that Rurik Thar. And she pluses Domri, but to no avail. It's not going to find one.
No, that was just a temple.
Oh, that was a temple. Okay, well, that one doesn't work either.
Your original point stands.
Good call, though. And Chris, 6-6, will continue to go to work. Yeah, this card is huge game in the matchup. He's going to activate Mutavault. And is she going to tap the demon? That's the question. I think she wants to. She does not. So Domri's going to take a hit. Charissa takes 2. Now she is back to an empty board. Night Veil Spectre added for VanMeter. Right, back to her. So her draw for the turn is Xenagos.
I actually think the Planeswalkers, they feel pretty low impact in the matchup to me. The Mono Black deck's actually fairly good at taxing them, and they're a little bit slow to the party.
Yeah, they're not ideal. I mean, Garruk is the best one. That's the thing, just because he draws so many cards. She played Xenagos this turn. This will actually give her a bit of a reprieve, possibly. She can fog the demon and then trade with the Mutavault, and that time Xenagos take 2. Or that would be she would have if Chris hadn't drawn Hero's Downfall. She's going to go for that line, tapping the demon. That gives priority back to Chris, gives him a chance to activate Mutavault.
He's trying to figure out, though, there is some risk in using his last removal spell here. If his plan is to, you know, use the Hero's Downfall on the Mutavault and clear out Xenagos, then, I mean, he has no removal spells left for the cards that might come off of top of Charissa's deck. Now, of course, he's very far ahead. And
right, you're saying he can just Night Veil attack the Xenagos and do
potentially
if he wanted to.
I think he's happy to trade Mutavaults because Charissa has a lot of threatening 6-mana plays, but it is a big question about whether he wants to use his Hero's Downfall here in the event that Charissa animates the Mutavault.
Right, he may just want to trade Mutavaults.
Right.
Yeah, I suppose he could always just downfall the Xenagos if he actually cared about it.
It's quite the insurance policy to have. Kill anything is a very nice insurance policy to have.
Absolutely. And it looks like all of it was going at Charissa.
Yeah. Charissa's just...
And Boonsader off the top, and now downfall on Xenagos. And she's running out of turns to draw something. Sylvan Caryatid will be no help. Her hand is now Boonsader Caryatid land.
Yeah, and Chris has navigated this game to a point where even something like Mizium Mortars or Garruk doesn't really do very much.
Yeah, absolutely. She's too far behind on the board. I mean, Desecration Demon is really just that good. And it looks like she's shocked to play the Stomping Ground, presumably so that she can bestow onto the Sylvan Caryatid and make it a lethal blocker.
The times, they are bleak.
Yeah, that's a play you can make, and one you're gonna probably have to make. So can't be thrilled about it.
Attention Magic players. We are now accepting signups for today's Legacy Open Trial.
I remember Chris still has Grey Merchant in hand, too, that's threatening a lot of damage.
It's Grey Merchant right now threatens 7. So she does not need very many. He's not need much more to make it a lethal Grey Merchant. All right, Caryatid will tap down Desecration Demon. Maybe I will swing. Puts her to 9. Chris will get another card. And that is a temple. Black loves temples. They're very good in the deck.
Sure, Chris doesn't mind.
No, it's okay if it doesn't make black mana. That's fine. And he's going to go ahead and cast Grey Merchant. That drains her down to 2. Chris up to 27. And now he has 4 lethal attackers next turn. I don't even think... Does not seem like Mizium Mortars can even save. She has to draw Mortars. That doesn't do it either. Yeah, she has to...
There's nothing to be done, I don't believe.
No, she can stay alive for more turn. She can draw Mortars, kill the 2 creatures, trade Mutavault with Mutavault, and sacrifice this Boonsader to Desecration Demon to live 1 more turn.
Sure.
And then she probably dies the next turn, because I don't think there's a top deck you can get from there. But, what? Oh no, she can't even trade the Mutavault. She's a mana short. Okay, I lied. And it is the Mortars. Wait. Nope, still doesn't work. Okay. So 2 games to 1. Chris VanMeter defeats Charissa Williams. He moves to 5-0. Charissa valiantly fought in a very close match, but drops to 4-1.
Definitely that one Garruk was critical in that second game.